I think we very quickly going to test that all-time high at 3,500, give or take a few days, a few weeks back and forth, but it will break out above 3,500. Next round number is 4,000. I think since we are in uncharted territory, you need to use these big round psychological numbers as next targets. So 4,000, 5,000 is very obvious to me, and that can happen rather quickly. And in the longer run, I'm definitely in the $10,000 gold camp. It's just a question of time, right?
If Trump tells Zelensky to take a hike and take his hundreds of millions of dollars to the UAE and retire, the war is over today. If the war is not over today, Russia, China, and Iran are going to say, these blithering idiots are going to keep attacking us until we fight back. And then we go into World War III.
Gold is trimming losses midweek, drawing support from sour market sentiment. After bouncing from two-week lows just above $3,300, the metal remains capped below the $3,330 area, now acting as resistance. That leaves the broader bearish trend intact, at least for the moment. Florian Grummes of Midas Touch notes that what stands out is gold's resilience. Every time the price has dipped into the $3,250 to $3,300 range, buyers have quickly stepped in, pushing it back toward $3,400. That kind of behavior, he says, is quietly bullish. We may be stuck in the summer doldrums right now, but the setup suggests that another leg higher will be only a matter of time. Grummes also highlights how gold has quietly outperformed for nearly a year and a half, at times even beating Bitcoin, yet it still hasn't captured mainstream attention. That's usually the hallmark of an early-stage bull market, strength without hype. Florian Grummes points out that silver's rally this year looks very different from the explosive spikes of the past. Instead of shooting straight up and then collapsing, silver has been climbing in measured steps. According to Grummes, that's a far healthier pattern, and a strong sign this rally could have real staying power. If silver continues to move in this structured way, it stands a solid chance of breaking through the long-term resistance level at $50. That level has only been tested twice in history. And rather than stopping there, Grummes believes silver could dash towards $60 or even $75 once the breakout occurs. Still, he cautions that the ultimate warning sign will be when silver goes parabolic. A sudden doubling or tripling in price over a short window would almost certainly mark the final blow-off top of the cycle. At that stage, the gold-to-silver ratio would likely crash toward 30 or even as low as 15, signaling extreme euphoria in the market. That's when disciplined investors should be prepared to step aside. Make sure to tune in for our expert analysis. Don't miss out on future content. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay in the loop. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Well, I mean, we are in this sideways consolidation basically since end of April, 4 months. Gold has been going nowhere overall, but at the same time, you can make a bullish case out of it because it has been holding up really well, right? I mean, you mentioned the big rally. Gold has been rallying from this triple low at 1615 nearly 3 years ago up to a new all-time high at 3,500 end of April. It's a massive move, nearly 100% move, and especially, of course, that rally since the breakout above 2,075 February last year. So it's totally healthy and normal that it's been consolidating, digesting that big move since end of April. But at the same time, given that big run-up, you would have maybe expected, or at least would have said maybe if we've seen a little bit bigger of a pullback, but that hasn't happened. Gold has been holding up really well here. And I think you can see it anytime it dipped below 3,300, 3,250-ish, immediately big new buyers stepped in, and quickly a few days later, gold had returned and challenged again that resistance level at 3,400. So I think overall, still sideways. We are in a summer doldrums situation right now here, mid of August, tight trading range. But overall, I think it's bullish. I think it's just a question of time until this rally will continue. So just a little bit be a bit patient here, I would say. I think it's a very accurate assessment because, I mean, look, I'm right now here in Germany coming to you, and the German government took out the big bazooka earlier that year when they announced a big trillion debt package here, just, I mean, to finance war and buy weapons and a few other infrastructure projects. And at the same time, the complaints here in Germany about rising prices at the grocery are constant. So it's exactly that what basically the cracker boom describes. On the one hand, governments, central banks devaluating the fiat currencies by printing more and more currency out of thin air, and at the same time, slowly but surely, the population, the people waking up to the fact that they're losing purchasing power. And I mean, that game is continuing worldwide. You see it in America, you see it in Canada, you see it in China even, and of course here also in the Eurozone, where they have already lowered interest rates since I think half a year already. So this is the main driver for the gold rally in the end of the day. We have, of course, in the short term, these peace negotiations in Ukraine. I think it's not a secret that there is a certain war premium in the gold price that has been building over the last 3 years. But then again, at the same time, the points that we just mentioned will bring in new buying immediately once you see a little bit of a pullback here. And the central banks in the emerging markets in Asia continue to buy. And I think also big money in the Western countries now is buying any pullback, because it's very obvious gold is in a bull market and your job is to buy the dip. So anytime we see a little bit of a pullback here in gold, I think new buyers will step in. Yeah, I mean, from a sentiment perspective, it's a very interesting rally, I would say, over the last 1.5 years. Most of the time, it never really hit mainstream, right? I mean, it kept rising, kept even outperformed Bitcoin to a certain extent. Yet you never really see that euphoria that I remember from that early bull run in 2001 to 2011, simply because I assume there's so many other options, and investors are so distracted with tech, with AI, with all these kind of things. So we've seen, like, if you look at the classical kind of sentiment index, I use the optics from Sentiment Trader. You've seen some sentiment peaks, but it never felt like the headlines flying around your head and talking only about gold. So it still feels like rather muted, and like there's no real interest. I mean, it was very clear that the main part of that rally has been made in the physical gold market in Shanghai and in China, and only rather recently, in the last 6 to 9 months, you've seen ETFs in the Western world slowly but surely starting to buy, but they're far away from any holdings that we've seen at peak gold in 2011, for example. So I think there's still a lot of room. What we're seeing in silver over this spring and summer is strong rally overall, but it's not this vertical spike that you usually have seen in silver in the past, where it suddenly goes totally banana for a few weeks, and then usually that's the end of a rally in the sector. No, it's been creeping higher, digesting, consolidating, and another push higher. Again, a few weeks digestion, sideways consolidation, and then another push higher. Very sustainable, very bullish in the longer run. I think it's telling us that there's much more to come here. So I think that the more it behaves like that, the more likely it is actually to break through that $50 without any big consolidation or correction around that big round number, which is obviously long-term resistance because it's the all-time high. And we've only been 2 times testing this number. But the more it behaves like it's behaving right now, I assume we're going to go through 50 and then probably rallying directly 60, 75. And in the longer run, once you see silver really going vertically, doubling, tripling in a very short period of time, that would be the signal for me to be really careful. And at the same time, I would like to see a gold-silver ratio maybe at 30 or at 15, ideally. That would tell us, like, complete euphoria. Okay, now we have to leave the sector. But again, we're far away from that. The generalist kind of value investor is already aware of what's going on in the gold sector, and with especially the gold producers at these high gold prices. And you can see at the same time, like, look, all these financings the last few weeks and months. I mean, most of them not only got completely sold, but also they doubled the size, right? I mean, we haven't seen that in that extent for a long time. And usually in the past, it used to be a sign of, like, be a little bit careful and cautious. Usually that is signaling a top, but we see actually the opposite here. I mean, the mining stocks holding up really well. Some of them making new highs. Gold is holding up well. And I think it's still just rather the beginning. And if we really zoom out and, for example, you look at the TSXV over the last 20, 25 years, I mean, we're far away below that all-time high from 2007, before the financial crisis, when the Toronto venture mining stocks topped out back then. So I think there's still a long way to go. We haven't seen any takeover frenzy in the sector. We haven't seen silver going vertical. I mean, there is so much good stuff still to come down the road. I think I don't think we have to be worried here about a big top and a turn in the market. A few weeks, a few months of more sideways consolidation and one nasty pullback to shake off all the weekends. Yeah, that's always possible, right? But I don't think that this bull market is anywhere near its end. So it's looking pretty medium.
Legendary analyst Bob Moriarty argues that the world is approaching a critical juncture. Either nations come together to end the endless cycle of conflict, or we slide toward a third world war, a war that, in his words, no one can truly win. Moriarty believes Russia, China, and Iran already understand the catastrophic cost of such a conflict. Even Vladimir Putin, he notes, has signaled interest in building a stable and mutually beneficial relationship with the United States. The problem, he says, is that Washington continues to behave as if it can solve everything through tariffs on China or by relying on Israel to crush Iran, strategies he dismisses as detached from reality. He doesn't mince words when it comes to Western leadership. Moriarty calls many of them delusional, and he singles out former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, accusing him of bearing responsibility for hundreds of thousands of deaths in Ukraine. Despite his sharp criticism, Moriarty stresses he is not anti-war by nature. What he cannot support, he says, are proxy wars that drain nations of resources while enriching special interests. Moriarty suggests that powerful financial groups are actively working to bankrupt Western nations, seeking to seize assets and consolidate control, even if it means pushing the world closer to global war.
Well, here's what's it's saying, and everybody's ignoring this. If they will go back to last week and what Putin was talking about, Putin was saying there was a lot of other things that we could discuss. I would love to see a global peace meeting with Russia, China, Iran, Israel, the UK, Germany, Poland, Switzerland, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all of them involved, and sit down and say, look, we can't afford these constant wars. Now, we either end these constant wars or we have World War III. That is the choice. Now, I'll be blunt. The Chinese understand the cost, and what I read to you from what the Chinese president said, and the Russians understand the cost, and certainly the Iranians do. But from a military point of view, we cannot defeat these people militarily. Putin would be more than happy to have a wonderful relationship with the United States that's mutually beneficial. And I think that's a wonderful idea. The United States thinks they're going to out-tariff China, or they're going to have Israel defeat Iran. It's not going to happen. Okay, simply cannot happen. We need to start accepting reality rather than this coke-fueled delusional world in which everything in the United States does is wonderful. Everything Zelensky does makes sense. These people are idiots. Boris Johnson has the blood of 1.2 million Ukrainians on his hands, and that is absolutely disgusting. And the man should be embarrassed at what he did. I'm not against war. I'm a warrior. I would defend my country against a real enemy. I would defend it to the death, and I was prepared to do that 60 years ago, and I did. Here's what's interesting. What did the Iranians say about that corridor?
What did they say?
They said it ain't going to happen. Okay.
Now, you're referring to the Azerbaijan-Armenian corridor.
Exactly. Yeah. Right on the Iranian border. President Trump came back and said, okay, I made a deal with Azerbaijan and Armenia. We're going to have peace. Everything's wonderful. He's full of shit. Okay. Because both parliaments have to vote to accept that. And that's a big if. And Iran has a vote. And Iran has said, ain't going to happen, guys. Don't do it. So there is a group that controls the banks, that want to bankrupt the West, and they want to seize the assets, and they believe that we can survive World War III. And I'm going to tell you, no, we cannot survive World War III. It will destroy the world. So I'm dead set against it. And the fact of the matter is, you got a problem, but I don't have a problem. I'm old, okay? It doesn't make a rat's ass to me if we have World War III or not. But if the United States wakes up, if somebody in that Trump administration today says, okay, I promised I would end the war in 24 hours, the war is over. Do you get it? And here's what's funny. Starmer was sitting there talking about how Europe wants peace. They are not in Washington to vote for peace. They are in Washington to vote for war, as long as the United States pays for it and Ukraine keeps contributing their young men. And actually, it's not young men anymore. It's 14-year-olds and 7-year-olds and women. The Russians are pissed because NATO was moved 16 countries to the east after the United States put in writing that they wouldn't move to an inch to the east. And China's pissed off because the United States is pulling the same crap, okay, in the Pacific, trying to rule the roost there. And Iran is saying, hey, wait a minute, okay, we are a sovereign nation. We have rights under international law, and they were attacked in a totally illegal war. What Israel and the United States didn't realize was sometimes the other guys fight back. Now, that corridor is not going to happen, period, okay? Because Iran is not going to allow an enemy on their northern border. Now, I believe, and it's just my opinion, I'm not putting this in writing to say it came down the mountain with Moses. I believe that there is an intention and a plan for Israel and the United States to attack Iran again. And should they do that, it will be the end of Israel. The weapons system and the leadership of Iran is absolutely amazing, and they're not people that I would mess with. And the United States totally underestimated their capabilities. The United States totally underestimated the capability of the Russians. And the big dog is China. Okay, China could shut down the U.S. economy literally overnight. Some of this stuff, well, Iran could shut down the entire world's economy overnight, and they could do it with the Girl Scout troop with 15 Girl Scouts with 10 bows and arrows and 2 BB guns. All they got to do is shut the Strait of Hormuz. 100%. The amazing thing to me is these guys have put up with so much bullshit, okay? Israel has been bombing Iran literally for the last 2 months, okay, in sabotage operations. Iran has been incredibly rational, okay? They don't want another war, but Israel does, and the United States does, and Donald Trump gets to decide today if we go straight to World War III or not. And I hope he tells Zelensky to go. I hope he throws Zelensky out, who is an absolute fraud.
What emerges from these perspectives is a picture of two distinct yet interconnected battlegrounds, financial and geopolitical. On one side, precious metals are showing unusual strength, with gold holding firm and silver advancing in a measured rhythm that hints at deeper, long-lasting momentum. On the other hand, global politics appears far more fragile, with warnings that unchecked rivalries, misguided policies, and hidden financial agendas could tip the balance into chaos. Both forces point to a world in transition, where trust, stability, and value itself are being renegotiated in real time. Suppose rising cracks in global leadership collide with shifting currents in financial markets. Will the next great turning point be defined by conflict, or by a new foundation for cooperation and stability? Share your perspective in the comments section. If the video resonates with you, join our community by subscribing to our channel and enabling notifications with the bell icon. Thank you for being a part of our community.